There is a kind of decision that doesn't feel like a decision at all. It feels like a wall. You don't choose to walk toward it. You find yourself already standing in front of it, and someone is asking you which side you want to be on, and you have approximately 12 seconds to answer. Most philosophy talks about choice as if it happens in a library, calm, with time, with all the information available. But the decisions that actually shape a human life don't happen in libraries. They happen at 2 in the morning. They happen in a parking lot. They happen when your hands are shaking and the person you trusted is telling you what the rational thing to do is. Save this video, because what we're going to talk about today is something most people only understand in hindsight, when it's already too late to use it. The question I want to sit with you on is this. When you are inside a moment of irreversible choice, what is actually happening to your thinking? And more importantly, is the voice that speaks the loudest in that moment the voice you should be following? Let's start with something uncomfortable. Most people believe that clarity comes before a decision, that you first understand what you should do and then you do it. But that is not how irreversible decisions work. With irreversible decisions, the kind that permanently alter the architecture of your life, clarity almost never arrives before the choice. It arrives after, sometimes years after, and this creates one of the strangest traps in human psychology. We make permanent choices using temporary emotional states, and then we spend years constructing a narrative that makes that choice feel inevitable. The philosopher Soren Kierkegaard had a concept he called the moment of decision, what he named the instant where time touches eternity. Not a metaphysical flourish, a precise observation. He meant that certain choices are not continuous with the flow of your normal life. They are ruptures. They create a before and an after. And no amount of rational calculation can fully prepare you for standing inside one. Kierkegaard wasn't interested in what the right choice was. He was interested in the existential structure of the person choosing. Who are you in that moment? What do you bring into that instant besides your fear and your exhaustion and the voice of whoever is standing closest to you? Here is the uncomfortable idea. When we say someone made a choice under pressure, we often treat that as an excuse, as if pressure is something external that distorted a pure internal will. But pressure is not a distortion of decision-making. Pressure is the condition under which most real decisions get made. And if you don't understand how pressure colonizes your thinking, how it narrows your perception, how it makes the fastest exit feel like the wisest path, then you don't actually understand how your own mind works. There is a concept in behavioral psychology called tunneling. It was developed seriously by Sendhil Mullainathan and Eldar Shafir when studying the cognitive effects of scarcity. Their finding was stark. When the mind is under pressure, financial, emotional, social, it doesn't just feel overwhelmed. It functionally loses access to long-term thinking. The tunnel is real. You are not lazy. You are not weak. You are not irrational. You are tunneling. And inside the tunnel, only immediate pain and immediate relief are visible. What is not visible? The version of yourself that exists on the other side of this decision. The consequences that will live in your body long after the pressure has passed. The things you cannot unfeel once you have felt them. This is not a warning to be passive. This is a map of what is happening to you so that you can, even slightly, step outside the tunnel and ask, whose voice am I listening to right now? And do they have access to something I don't? Let me give you a more precise framework. When a person faces an irreversible decision under pressure, 3 voices typically appear. The first voice is the voice of urgency. This voice speaks in the language of time. We don't have time for this. We need to decide now. Every second we wait makes it worse. This voice is often the voice of someone else, a partner, a parent, a system, an institution. The voice of urgency is not automatically wrong. Sometimes urgency is real. But urgency is also the oldest manipulation in human history because it collapses the decision space. It makes deliberation feel like weakness. If someone is pressing you to decide immediately on something that will define years of your life, that pressure itself is information. What does this person gain from your speed? What do they lose from your pause? The second voice is the voice of logic. This voice speaks in the language of practicality. We're not ready. The timing is wrong. This makes no sense given our current situation. The rational thing is obvious. The voice of logic sounds trustworthy. It's the voice we associate with intelligence, with maturity, with not being naive. But here is what no one says directly. Logic without wisdom is just a sophisticated form of avoidance. Logic can calculate costs. Logic cannot calculate meaning. Logic can tell you what you lose by choosing one path. Logic cannot tell you who you become depending on which path you walk. Aristotle distinguished between two kinds of knowledge. Episteme, which is scientific, systematic, provable, and phronesis, which he called practical wisdom. The kind of judgment that only comes from living inside the full complexity of a situation, not from outside it. The voice of logic is episteme, trying to do the job of phronesis. And that substitution has costs that are not visible in the moment. The third voice, and this one is the quietest, is the voice that doesn't speak in language at all. It speaks in sensation, in a pause, in something that feels like resistance. Not the resistance of fear, but the resistance of recognition. The sense that something in you knows something your rational mind has not yet processed. Philosophers have called this different things. Husserl called it pre-reflective consciousness. The phenomenologists called it the body subject, the lived body that perceives meaning before the mind categorizes it. Simply put, sometimes your body understands what your mind is still arguing about. The deepest question of any irreversible decision is, which of these three voices do I trust, and why? What comes next is the part most people don't stay long enough to hear. Because so far, this sounds like a map of the problem. But the real philosophical weight is here. The irreversibility itself is not the tragedy. The tragedy is living as if all your decisions were reversible, and then being destroyed by the ones that weren't. There is a concept I want to introduce from a perhaps unexpected source. The philosopher and theologian Paul Tillich wrote about what he called the courage to be. And the core of his argument was this: the most human act is not the act of choosing correctly. It is the act of affirming existence itself in the face of non-being, in the face of loss, of failure, of paths not taken, of the permanent weight of a decision you cannot undo. Tillich wasn't a soft thinker. He had lived through 2 world wars. He understood that existence is not comfortable, that it comes with irreversible costs built in, that being alive means accumulating decisions you cannot revisit. And his question was not, how do I avoid the irreversible decision? His question was, can you bear the weight of existing as a being who chooses, knowing that some choices close doors forever? Because the person who cannot bear that weight will always choose the path of least permanence. Not the path that feels right, not the path that aligns with their deepest values, but the path that feels most like it can be undone if it goes wrong. And here is the brutal truth. There is no path that can be fully undone. Every exit has a cost. Every avoidance has a consequence. The person who refuses the irreversible choice in order to stay safe still lives with the irreversibility of that refusal. This is what no one tells you when they're pressing you toward the quick exit. The exit is not neutral. The exit also has a permanent address in your interior life. Let me bring this closer to the ground. Imagine a person, young, overwhelmed, facing a situation they did not plan for and do not feel equipped to navigate. They are surrounded by people who care about them, but each one of those people is, in some way, projecting their own fears, their own desires, their own unresolved questions onto the situation. The partner says, "We're not ready." This is logic. The friend says, "I support you no matter what." This is warmth, but it doesn't resolve the question. The stranger who barely knows them says, "What lives inside you is already something." This is a claim about reality, about the metaphysical status of what has begun. And in the middle of all of this, the person is expected to choose. Under pressure, without time, without full information, without emotional stability, without any guarantee about what the future holds on either side. Now here is the philosophical question I want you to sit with. Is there any philosophical framework that can tell this person what the right choice is? The utilitarian will calculate outcomes. The Kantian will ask what maxim could be universalized. The existentialist will say the choice is the person's alone to make, and that authenticity demands they own it fully. But all of these frameworks share an assumption, that the person making the choice has access to themselves. And the deepest crisis in a moment of extreme pressure is not moral confusion. It is self-inaccessibility. You are not fully present to yourself. The tunnel has narrowed your world to immediate pain and immediate relief. And so the question becomes, how does a person return to themselves inside the most pressurized moment of their life? Here is one answer that I think philosophy has consistently undervalued. Witness. Not witness in the legal sense, witness in the philosophical sense. The presence of another human being who is not trying to direct your choice, but who holds space stable enough that your own perception can expand. Hannah Arendt, in her work on the human condition, argued that the self does not become visible to itself in isolation. We become legible to ourselves through the presence of others. Not others who confirm us, not others who direct us, but others who see us clearly enough that we can see ourselves through that seeing. This is why the quality of the people around you in a moment of crisis matters so much. Not because they have the answer, but because they expand or contract your access to yourself. A person who is pressing urgency contracts your field. A person who is offering conditional support contracts your field. A person who is projecting their own fear onto your situation contracts your field. A person who is genuinely present, who has no agenda for your choice, who can hold the full weight of your reality without flinching, who can witness you without immediately trying to fix you, that person expands your field. And in an expanded field, you can sometimes hear the third voice, the one that speaks without language. You can feel the pause. You can sense the resistance that is recognition. And sometimes, not always, but sometimes, what you recognize is something you cannot fully explain to anyone around you, but that you know with a kind of certainty that bypasses argument. This is not mysticism. This is phenomenology. Your embodied, lived experience has data your rational mind has not yet processed. And the moment of irreversible choice is the moment you must decide. Do you trust that data, Or do you override it because the voices around you speak louder? Now, I want to do something that might feel uncomfortable. I want to talk about the aftermath, because the story of irreversible choice doesn't end at the moment of decision. It begins there. Whatever you choose, you will spend time, sometimes years, constructing an account of why you chose what you chose. This is not dishonesty. This is what philosophers call narrative self-constitution, the way human beings create continuity and meaning in their lives by building stories about themselves. Paul Ricoeur, the French philosopher, argued that personal identity is not a fixed thing you possess. It is something you construct through narrative, through the stories you tell about the relationship between your past self and your present self. And here is where the stakes of the irreversible decision become clearer. If you make an irreversible choice that conflicts with your deepest values, not the values you say you have, but the values you actually live by at the level of sensation and recognition, then the narrative work you have to do afterward is enormous. You have to explain to yourself who you are, given what you did. You have to integrate an action that does not fit the self you thought you were. Some people do this by changing their values. They revise who they are to fit the choice they made. Some people do this by justifying the choice indefinitely, constructing layers of rationalization so thick that the original resistance becomes inaudible. And some people simply carry the weight, not as punishment, not as guilt performance, but as the honest acknowledgement that an irreversible choice has a permanent address in the self, and that address cannot be demolished, only, perhaps, transformed. This third response, carrying the weight honestly, is what I think constitutes genuine moral maturity. Not the inability to move forward, not self-flagellation, but the refusal to pretend that permanent choices are temporary. The refusal to flatten complexity into resolution too quickly. Most people who are watching this right now, and the fact that you've made it this far tells me something about you. Most people want the philosophical framework to resolve the tension. They want me to say, here is the right answer to an irreversible choice. But that is exactly the move I am refusing to make. Not because there are no better or worse choices, there are, but because the moment I hand you a resolution, I rob you of the one thing philosophy is actually for. Philosophy is not a machine for producing answers. Philosophy is a practice for developing the quality of your attention, so that when you stand in front of an irreversible decision, you are more fully present to yourself than you would have been otherwise. The Stoics understood this better than almost anyone. Epictetus, who was a slave before he was a philosopher, did not teach his students what to choose. He taught them to distinguish between what is within their power and what is not. And his understanding of this distinction was far more radical than the self-help versions you usually encounter. He didn't say, control your circumstances. He said, the only thing that is ever fully yours is your assent, the quality of your inner response to what happens to you, not your external choices, not your outcomes, not even your emotions, which can arise without permission. Your assent, the act of how you meet what meets you. And the practice of philosophy, the daily, unglamorous practice of asking what is mine, what is not mine, what do I actually value, what do I actually fear? That practice is the only preparation that means anything when the moment arrives. Because the moment always arrives. For everyone. In different forms. Under different pressures. With different voices speaking different urgencies. But the structure is always the same. You are inside something permanent. You are being asked to move. And you have to decide in real time whether the voice you're following is yours.
Here is the interpretive twist. We talk about irreversible decisions as if the danger is making the wrong choice. But the deeper danger, the one that affects far more people, is making a choice without being present to yourself at all. A person who chooses wrongly, but with full presence, can live with that. They can integrate it. They can build meaning from it, not in spite of the weight it carries, but sometimes because of it. A person who chooses without being present, even if the outcome is technically fine, has established a pattern, a habit of self-absence in the moments that matter most. And that habit, repeated, is how people arrive at midlife with a biography that feels like it belongs to someone else.
With a life they cannot fully claim. With choices they made but cannot explain because they were never fully there when they made them. This is what Kierkegaard called despair, not sadness, not depression in the clinical sense, but the specific suffering of living as something less than what you are, of having a self and failing to inhabit it. The antidote is not better decision-making in the technical sense. The antidote is the ongoing practice of returning to yourself, before the crisis, during the crisis, and after, no matter what you chose. I want to leave you with something concrete, not a checklist, not 5 steps, but a distinction that I think you can carry. There is a difference between a choice that is hard because it is difficult and a choice that is hard because it is wrong. A difficult choice has weight, fear, uncertainty, real costs on both sides, and a sense, underneath the fear, that you can live with who you become if you make it. A wrong choice, wrong for you, wrong in relation to your actual values, has a different texture. It has a specific kind of silence that follows a certain kind of internal argument. The silence that comes after you've talked yourself into something that you talked yourself out of the first time and the second time, and now you're exhausted and you're going to let the urgency decide for you. Learn the difference in the texture, not in theory, in your body, because your body has been keeping score long before your mind started keeping notes. And when you stand in front of something irreversible, something that will permanently change the architecture of who you are, the most important question is not, what should I do? The most important question is, am I here? Am I present enough to this moment to actually be the one making this choice? Or am I going to let the loudest voice in the room decide for me and then spend years calling that my decision? Those who stay with questions like this, who are willing to sit in the discomfort rather than sprint toward resolution, have a different relationship to their own lives. Not easier lives, not lives free from permanent choices and their costs, but lives they can claim. Lives where the weight of irreversibility doesn't crush them because they met that weight honestly, with their eyes open, inside a self they had actually inhabited. That is the work. Not once, not in a single moment of crisis. Every day. In smaller decisions that practice the muscle. In the habit of asking, whose voice is this? Is this mine? So that when the moment arrives, and it will arrive, you are not meeting it for the first time. You've been training for it. Not perfectly, never perfectly, but present. And presence, in the end, is the only philosophical answer that the irreversible decision actually asks for. If this opened something in you, a question, a memory, a tension you've been carrying, I want to hear it. Leave it in the comments, not to be resolved, just to be said. Because sometimes the most important thing is to let the question exist outside of you for a moment. And if you know someone who is standing in front of one of these moments right now, share this with them. Not as advice, just as company. Philosophy at its best is not the voice that tells you what to do. It's the voice that says, you don't have to figure this out alone. And you are more present to yourself than you think.